So typically, I end the show with a good skill that could potentially make your work more successful. But today, I want you to hear how the guest implements the skill of leadership, listening, and work. A good skill is just playing when you're throwing a football around. But what if you want to call it a game? You need a scoreboard, you need a clock, you need goalposts, there's even a referee. And that's how I like to think about work, the bigger skill of actually playing this game, listening to all these factors and still trying to score with your team against the opponent in front of you. And that's how our guest Ryan Sullivan puts it. When you get promoted to manager, that's actually when the real work begins. That's when you have to define the scoreboard. What are we measuring? What does winning even look like? And what are you actually going to get out of each individual person? Because it's all down to the individual. One of the fastest ways, Ryan says, to kill a good employee is to let a bad employee get away with stuff. People are watching, they're always watching. And here's the bigger issue: people aren't machines, yet we treat them like they are. Let's roll right in. All right, welcome to the Work Sucks, but I Like It podcast. Today we've got Ryan Sullivan. He's a friend of mine, and we were work colleagues at another company years ago. Ryan served in the United States Air Force for 7 years, and for nearly 20 years after that, he's devoted himself to being a manager of varying operations with my favorite, a continual focus on continuous improvement. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tony. Glad to be here, brother.
No, I'm excited, dude. So, Ryan, every guest I ask, first thing, how do you define work? How do you define it?
Well, it's funny because if you think about it like that, every time I talk to people, like when I have my big meetings, I'm like, look, I don't want anybody to love, no one's going to love work. No one's ever going to love work, but you shouldn't hate it. So basically work, it's part of the aspect of life that we all have to do in order to, I guess, provide for whatever you want to do. Work, to me, work is your first path to doing whatever you want to do. Like you don't have to, when you're a kid, you want to grow up and do what you love. Honestly, if you put the work in, you could do what you love after work. So I guess the definition of it is just doing something to get to the end goal, right? Working anything, working your life, working, business, working yourself. So
So I love that, Ryan. So how do you apply that definition to what you're doing today? Walk us through what you're doing today.
so I'm back in plant management, Tone. I was CI for a while. I took a left to get back on the highway to production eventually. Basically, the way I define it is I'm not value added even as a plant manager. Like I used to say that as a CI, but plant management in particular even more. Like I don't walk through the door and add value. This place could shut down tomorrow. So my work is to clear the way for anybody else on the floor. Like the workers are the ones making the, and I use the term workers to define work. That's begging the question, kind of. But the people that are actually pushing the buttons and making the parts, those are the people that are working. My work per se is to make their work easier. I guess if
And
that
that's why we
makes
got
sense.
along so well, Ryan, when we
Yeah.
were at that previous company. I mean, I view the same thing. The people on the floor are doing the work. Why do you think it's difficult for organizations today to see that? Why is the top leadership? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
It's pride. It's hubris. I really believe it's hubris. People have a hard time. You and I have worked with people in the past that had a hard time understanding they don't add value, and to them, it's just like people think they walk through the door and add value. So that pride of saying you really don't add value, people can't handle that. In my opinion, and it's that combined with a disconnection a lot of times. If you don't know what people are going through, then how could you have any empathy for that? So it's like you think what you're doing is the hardest thing in the world, and we all do that in our silos. We're like, well, my job's the hardest. Well, it's really not. Like everybody's job is just equally as hard. It's a matter of how you tackle it, I guess.
No, that's great, Ryan. So one of the things on the show we like to talk about. So success is not good luck, it's good skills. What skill would you recommend for listeners, leaders today to develop, to talk, develop that skill that you're talking about just now?
I would say the ability to listen without waiting to answer. Like if you could listen to people, if you sincerely care about what people are saying, I would say the best compliment I ever got in my life was it was listening and communication because this goes hand in hand. The best compliment I ever received in my life was I have the ability just to talk to people with expecting nothing back. And that's half the time I just want to hear what you're going through. I want to hear about your life. Like that's learning to me. Yeah, you know what I mean? You got to be a constant student, and that's the best way to approach it.
I find that that's like, and I agree with you so much that small talk is critical in organizations and corporate, especially manufacturing, like you and I are in. Sometimes that's viewed as like not added value, right? If we're not doing something to move parts through, we're not doing our job. How do you integrate this small talk in your day?
You well, and what I'll say is I think a lot of people view it as not adding value because they don't look at the people aspect of your employees as valuable. Your employees are the only thing in this whole facility that appreciate. Every other thing you buy or purchase or whatever depreciates, but as soon as you get an employee through the door, they just get better and better and better because they learn the processes and stuff like that. If you look at your employees or your team or whatever you wanna call them as actual, appreciating things, that then you value that, you know what I'm saying? And you put that work in. Small talk is not about, just passing time. Small talk is about getting an understanding of people. Like,
Mm.
if you could small talk a machine and make it, better, then it's good you're gonna do it. When I was in CI Tone, I used to tell people all the time, I was like, "There's no secret to what I'm doing. I'm trying to make your job easier so you make more parts." It is what it is, and people gotta understand that.
No, that's excellent. So one thing, Ryan, I know you've been in CI. So when we try to make change, change can suck for people. Why are people so against change initiatives to improve?
I would say so the one line I've been using for, like, 7 years now, it's a Mark Twain quote, and it says that, "It's easier to convince somebody of a lie than it's easier to convince them they've been lied to." And if you apply that to somebody doing something for the past 5 years, and now you come in as a CI guy and say, "Hey, I got a better way of doing it." They're like, "Well, what are you talking about?" "No, you don't." And then it goes back to the hubris thing. So now all of a sudden your pride is coming out, and you're saying, "I know how to do it because 'cause I've been doing it for 10 years." Well, you could mow the lawn wrong for 10 years. It doesn't mean you're doing it right. You know what I mean? So I think that's the hardest part about it. And then just like the Who Moved My Cheese book, people just hate
Yeah.
change in general. Like no one likes it. You know what I mean? So
Right. They're all hemming and hawing. No, it's a
yeah,
great book.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, 100%.
So when you come against or you're working with these people that don't want to change, how do you there's too much pride. How do you work with those people, right? We face them every day, let's face it, in corporate and wherever we're at. What are your tactics? What are your strategies?
I like to like I hate to, go back to like Jim Collins, but I like the whole flywheel aspect.
Mm.
Once they see it moving, you don't have to do a big to do like, hey, I'm coming here to revolutionize the world. You do a project, you see the benefit of it. You do another project, you see the benefit of it. After a while, the people are going to start saying, "Oh, wait, this person's trying to make my job easier." Because what it is I've been at both sides of that coin tone. I've been on the floor where the managers come out and it's like, "We're going to do this initiative, blah blah blah," and it ends up being more work on me. They don't explain to me what I'm doing. Like I've worked in the past with I'm not saying anything bad about consultants, but I've worked with consultants and they'll put up like a great board and they'll show you
Mm.
what to do, but they're not telling you why. So that's why it falls apart like 3 months later. You got to set that foundation correctly. I think that's where we
S-
miss.
So how do you build that why? I guess you kind of mentioned and talked if you can talk to us more about like going out on the floor, right? There's this divide of like people in the office, people on the floor. How do you break down that barrier?
For me, it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy. That's kind of that's hubris right there. For me, it comes naturally, I guess you could say, because I came from the floor. Like my background. I came from very humble beginnings, so like I know how I don't want to be talked to. I know the triggers that turn me off. I guess you could say. So when I talk to people, it's that sincerity and the fact that I know how to dance around. Like I know how it feels to worry about paying your rent at the end of the week. Like I know how it feels to have bills. A lot of people in the C suites don't see that. Not majority, but a lot of people they're just so disconnected from that. Either they've been through it and forgot about it, or they've never been through it. So that sincerity and then transparency, like letting people know, look, you could like I'm telling you, you could trust me, and they hear it all the time. You have to show them that as well. So you combine those two things, you could usually get a tidal wave of support.
No, I love that. So, Ryan, when we talk about intrinsic and extrinsic motivators, how do you use the two to help you engage with people that you work with?
A lot. So I guess it's the balance. It's when I'm coming across people, like I want to see what's driving them. To me, extrinsic, it's not as big as a lot of people say. Like when people are like promising a dollar, like okay, if I give you a dollar raise right now, you're gonna want $2 next week. But if I'm promising, I don't want to say promise, but if I'm giving you an opportunity to make money in the future, if I'm saying, look, right now I could put you as a team leader, and then from a team leader I could train you to be a supervisor, and from a supervisor I could train you to be a manager. That progression, people want to do better. The main thing that keeps people back from trying to get promoted is fear. The root of it is fear. You don't want to fail. No one wants to fail. And just like I get like Virgil and Dante's Inferno, a lot of people just want that guide. You know what I mean? If you have that person that's showing you through it, it helps and it turns you around, I guess. And that's kind of the approach I always take.
No, that's great. I mean, there's a lot of fear in the workplace so can you
Yep.
walk us through sort of an example that comes to mind with how you've handled this fear in other people?
So I guess the biggest thing I try to do is I try to promote a safe place to fail. Like they always say, if you don't have a safe place to fail, you don't have any like ideas coming out. And I come right out, Tony. You know me. I'll be. I tell people all the time, I'm not smart. I'm clever. So I'll lean into my goofiness, I guess you could say, because I I hate when people try to use big words to make me feel like make other people feel stupid or whatever. So
Me too.
and you know what I mean? And then when I'm in that situation with my team, and I do lean into, you know how I am with the team. Like once I have a team, I take a lot of pride in that. But I'll show them like I have no problem feeling stupid, or putting myself out there. And if they see me doing it a lot of times, they'll follow along. It's the same way if it's the opposite. If you have a leader that's like trying to like be cool or whatever all the time, or sound like they got it under control all the time, people are gonna be afraid. They don't want to fail because that guy's never failing, or that, you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense.
No, no, that's great. So, Ryan, you and I have both worked at larger corporations. Now, you and I are both at smaller companies. What are your thoughts with the workplace culture when you compare a small company versus a large company? What are the big differences that you see?
I guess it I don't it's easier to control, not control. It's easier to have a good culture when you have a smaller company or a smaller,
Mm.
so we're part of a bigger organization. I'm just in a smaller plant right now. So I could kinda, get the synergy that I think we need. A lot of times, again, I apologize for going back to Jim Collins, but I'm listening to it as I drive. Right people, right seats tone. I think there's a lot more to that than people take it for. It's not just skill set, it's group synergy, it's small group dynamics. In a smaller plant, you could see how the personalities mesh more than a larger scale, because a lot of times too, the bigger it gets, the further away from you the factory floor you're at, that you're farther from the gemba, so you don't see it. So you get
Mhm.
snapshots and you're taking that in. In a smaller scenario, I'm seeing how they interact all the time, and I'm trying to balance that out. It's I don't want to say it's easier, but it's easier to identify. It's sort of like having a process set up where you have like a three-piece rule in it. Like I could see where there's a problem in that process. You know what I mean? Same with people.
No, you mentioned a word that I want you to kind of explain to the audience here. They might not know it. So you said the word Gemba. Why is it important to have a Gemba? And what is Gemba?
This is a great one, Tone. So the Gemba is just where the work's going on. Like literally it's just where the work's going on. I've been through a few organizations and Gemba's done so different. Gemba to
It's
me,
a
a
polite
Gemba.
way to say that, but
Oh
it's
man, I tell you what, I hope my face didn't express that too much. But so like where I've so okay, so a Gemba walk. So when I think of Gemba, I think of the Gemba walk, and a Gemba walk is going to each cell. If you can't make it to every one of them, each cell where you're having an issue, I guess for the most part, and trying to identify where the problems are in that cell and problem solving on the spot. A good Gemba is a safe place to fail. It's a safe place to talk. A bad Gemba is where hyenas are going to jump all over you mistakenly saying a part number. Like you're not going to get any problem solving that way. Um, another bad substitute for Gemba is like a giant group meeting, because you're not going to solve any problems that way either. Again, people don't want to feel stupid. Just by and large, people do not want to feel stupid. They want to feel important. According to what was it, Carnegie, everybody just wants to feel important. You know what I mean?
yes,
You're not
yes.
going to feel important if you feel stupid. So when you go to the Gemba and you're doing these Gemba walks, you're literally looking at the vitals of the plant. I look at the plant like a person, you remember our old friend Steve, who was a personal trainer. I look at it like a person. So if it's red, I have issues and I have to work on those issues. You can't boil the ocean. The Gemba boils it down into like your top three, or you hear people say Pareto. It's your top three problems. That's what you're working on, and it's continuous improvement. So once you fix a problem, you go to the next problem. And once you fix that problem, you go to the next problem. And by and large, you're usually back to that first problem because you got all these other ones fixed. Um, the Gemba walks to me are crucial. It's the only way for plant leadership, middle leadership, and hourly leadership to work together. Without that, you're just flying blind.
How do you generate buy-in? I mean, I love the concept of a Gemba walk. We don't have one formally where I'm at now, but I do my walks, if you will, and I talk to the people. What are your thoughts with that?
The best way I've ever, and I hate to use an example, but the best way I've ever generated buy-in was like idea systems. There was a book, Ideal Organization, Dr. Robertson out of UMass. Tom Walsh brought him in, a old mentor of mine. And basically what it is, Tone, is you put up like production, safety, quality, like three columns, and everybody in that cell writes the things they're dealing with that they've either told management in the past that hasn't done anything about it. They just never said anything. But you lay this out, and what it is they'll all get a magnet at the end of the month, and you vote on the top 3 problems. That's getting the buy-in. People want to be a part of the solution. It's transparency. It's that small talk, and it's showing them that you're there to help them. Without those 3 things, you'll never get buy-in. That plus you got to remember the people on that are doing the job, seeing so many people come in before and say they promise the world, and they're either trying to fast track the CEO or they don't really know what they're doing, and it just falls apart. So you're dealing with almost any relationship. It's the same thing. You got to get that trust back. As soon as you get the trust back, it's through transparency and it's through showing, not talking, I guess you could say.
So one of the things, no, it's great, Ryan. So say we pick a project from our Gemba and then we try and initiate it. Walk us through how to be successful because we've all heard like the flavor of the month change, and all this bull crap. How do you be successful with change on those projects?
So with me, any project you got to put a scoreboard up. A lot of times we're trying to fix things without a scoreboard and a clock. You've heard me say it in the past. We throw a football, we're just playing. If we put a scoreboard and a clock up, now it's a game. If
Mm,
you
mm.
gotta put the bookends on, you gotta watch out for scope creep, and you gotta really focus on what you're trying to do. So, for example, if your throughput all of a sudden is dropped, let's say you drop like 20%. Number one, you gotta identify where the actual problem is. Kidlin's law. If you identify the problem, you're 50% to solving it, or whatever it is. Once you identify that problem, it's just like to make, like in our black belt classes. Once you figure out the levers of what it is, then you have to manipulate those levers to get them in the direction you want to go. If you don't have a true current state to what you're going after, if you haven't identified that problem, you're gonna go to Albuquerque like Bugs Bunny used to do, and you're gonna be way off. You have to kind of like be able to see what you're controlling and see what you're manipulating, and then get it going the right direction. The problem is, Tony, people try to solve things way too fast.
Mm.
The 5 whys, I'm not gonna name them by name, but I've been in places where we used to call them the 1 why factory. Remember that? Like, "Oh, you got the
Yeah.
first
Oh
why,
yeah.
you must have solved the problem." And then the problem keeps coming up. You gotta really take a step back and critically think about what you're looking at and then try to make the improvements.
No, that's awesome. That's
Yep.
awesome. So, Ryan, this is, of course, the Work Sucks, but I Like It podcast. What is something that sucks about your work today? What's a challenge for you, and what are you doing to make it not suck?
So the plant I'm in, we're in like a newer acquisition, so we're trying to get the scheduling right. And with me, scheduling is always it's my bane of my existence. You really just want it to work out smoothly. So what we're doing is we're taking it on holistically as a team.
Mm.
You know me, I get everybody involved because I always say it. I'm not smart. I'm clever. So my cleverness with your intelligence, we could come up with a solution. So we're taking a step back. We're looking at 30,000 feet. We're looking down and we're saying, okay, if we run this with this, then that makes sense. If we run this next to this, then we could have somebody run both machines. So I guess the scheduling aspect coming in at every company, this, it needs improvement. Here, we're taking it on as a team, and it's making that load a lot less, if that makes sense.
So, one thing that I'm always curious about, Ryan, is like feedback in the work setting, right? Especially, I guess let's talk about it from your role, from a manager's side. How do you get feedback to improve? How do you give feedback? Let's start with you.
Yep. So for me, as to my boss, or to me as like the people below me.
Just feedback in general, like hearing something that you need to improve, hearing something
Yeah.
good. Like, how do you process your feedback?
So I always like to say I pride myself. I have the ability to give good news and bad news. And that trust of knowing I'll give both makes it easier for the feedback. So with my team, I set up one-on-ones weekly, no matter what. Even if we don't have anything to talk about, Tone, I'll set that one-on-one up, and we'll go through just like what's going on. And a lot of times it is, I want to know what's going on in your life as well, because if you got
Mm.
things going on, people aren't machines. So one day that machine's going to run the same way until you change a variable. That person's going to run great, and then all of a sudden something bad might happen. So I got to hear about that in one-on-ones. I got to hear about what you're stuck on, how to fix things. I also try to do quarterly reviews, if not at the very least annual reviews. Because no one wants to be surprised, Tom. No one wants to know that they're doing great at the end of the review period, and no one wants to know that they need improvement at the end of the review period. The transparency and the structure of that makes it easier for me to give the feedback, I guess, or to the people. And it's also when we're in that one on one, we're in the four walls. Say what you want about me. What do you need from me? I got to be able to help you. If I don't know what I'm not doing, then how do I improve on that? Communicating upward, kind of the same thing, I guess you could say. I've been lucky enough to have bosses that always do one-on-ones, which is pretty cool. And they're structured a lot like mine, so I learned from all my bosses on how to do them really. And then laterally, it's usually group meetings. You know how I am. I try to call group meetings. I'm transparent with my teams. Even if it's not my project, I get everybody in the room, and then we hash it out, and we know the direction we're going by the time we leave that room, hopefully.
No, that's excellent. I mean, I think the feedback's critical, right? I love your analogy of the football thing, right? We need the sidelines, we need the end zones and whatnot. In corporate, it's like tough sometimes. Like you said, all we get is the annual review, right? So I think it's important to get more feedback to the team. In football, if you didn't complete the pass, you get thrown a flag if there's a foul, right? So there's a feedback in sports. We don't get enough feedback in the workplace. So I think that no, that's excellent. So, what are your thoughts, Ryan? And I know we're recording this today, late January. It's a Saturday, and you love your job so much you're there. What are your thoughts with work life balance? How do you balance the concept of work and the concept of life? Do you think it's the right thing to be asking?
So it's funny. I'm a try hard. You know me. I'm here a lot and stuff but I don't expect anybody else to do that. My goal, it's how do I say this? It My goal is to get the work flowing so easy that it gets down to a 45-hour a week. But I can't go into a position thinking I'm gonna go into a 45-hour week. In order to start getting to that current state being your future state, it takes work. I think a lot of people get to a certain manager level and they think that's it, but that's when the work really starts. I hate to say it. Once you get to that point of, value stream manager, plant manager, director of ops, you got to put more work in because it's your people now whose job you're trying to make easier. Once it gets to that point, then you're back to that 45-hour week. So that's my end goal, I guess you could say. I'm always trying to improve the plant to hum like that. And the problem is I'm never really at that point. So I'll still always be at a 50-hour week because there's always more tweaks to make.
Mm.
But I balance pretty well. I get to sleep early. I still do the gym. You got to go to the gym. I hate to hate to tell you, you got
Stay
to
in
go to
shape.
well, it's not even more it's more for the break, and you gotta break it up. Like, I go at lunch, Tony, you know me, so I'll work a 10 and a half, 11-hour day, but I take a 45-minute, and I'll go to the gym, and I'll rack it out, and I'll feel fine, I'll feel refreshed. Even this morning, before I got here, I went to the gym. It's just something that keeps me fresh. So as long as I have that, and I have my work, and I have time with, my family, or my significant other, I'm good with that. That's all I really need. Some people, they wanna do other things, and that's cool too, and I don't ever expect anybody to be a try hard like that. It's just a matter of what you want in life and how you wanna get it, so.
We've both been in manufacturing for years, Ryan. And when I ask this question to other people, they'll say things like, oh, just change the shifts or whatever. But in manufacturing, we can't do that, right? What are your thoughts with like integrating work life? It's different for a manager versus an hourly, right? The hourly kind of has to be there all these hours. What are your thoughts on playing with this idea of work life balance? How do you make it accommodating for everybody?
So, like with me personally, I've come in at 2:30 to teach leadership and Six Sigma classes. I don't mind it because I enjoy that. Other people have different family lives. Some people have kids. Some people have, whatever. Some people are taking care of people. You gotta be able to know what you're getting out of a person, and be able to accept that. I've met brilliant people, Tony, that could do it in 30 hours. And then I met just hard workers that need that 60, 65 hours. It's all down to the individual, and it's all down to what you are looking for to get out of that individual, I guess, if that makes any sense.
No, that's awesome. So how do you let's dive a little further into this. So how do you like navigate the rules of the company? Say there's a policy you can't be 3 minutes late after you punch in. How do you I want to get technical here, the nitty
Yeah,
gritty
yeah, I
of
like
this.
this.
How do you manage that? How do you not ding them for the 30-hour, week person that does so well, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever it may be.
So it's funny because now I'm back in plant management, so my vision of this is a little bit different. As a CI, you know me, I'm like, everybody's whatever. Um, with me now, when you're rolling into the disciplinary world and things like that, or the rules, I guess you could say, like, operation discipline is not, with a whip or anything like that. Operational discipline is just holding it together. The way I look at it, Tone, it's you're not writing somebody up for that one person. You're writing it. The best way to kill a good employee is to let a bad employee get away with stuff. Like literally, you'll
Mm.
lose your best people. Like I've seen it. I've had back to the small group dynamics and the synergy. I've seen a smaller team fall apart by letting an individual get away with small things too. It's the small things that build up over time that without rules it's chaos. I mean, it is what it is, and then it just divulges into that. So that's kind of the way I do it. There's been times where I had to write people up that like had real world scenarios, like my car, wouldn't start or yada yada yada, and what I default to when that happens is, look, you got to this stage in a write up because the other 5 times where your car did start, you were just late. The other people are seeing that, and at the same time, going back to my days on the factory floor, I remember being that person, being like, why is this person getting away with murder? Um, so that's kind of the way I do it. It's you got to be consistent, like in everything you do. So if you're gonna be, if you have high standards and I have high standards, like when I'm trying to build my team, it's hard to work for me. People have worked for me in the past, like they know it's I just have high standards. But at the end of it, we all come out of it better, and pressure makes diamonds. So at that point, you're just evolving faster and faster. If that makes any sense.
No, I love that. I love that kind of practical advice as well for the listeners. One thing, Ryan, I want to pick your brain on is what are the generational differences of today that you're
Oof,
seeing? I
that's a
know,
good
right? That's what I want to ask you about.
that's a great question.
Let's start with
Eh
the younger. Can we start with the younger?
yeah,
All
the
right,
young,
perfect.
young, the
The
young,
young,
the
young. I'm
like
talking the young
Gen
guns
A
coming
or
in.
whatever it is.
Oh, I
Oof.
don't know what they are now, but
Yeah, so it's they don't it's well, what's funny? It's eye-opening a little bit because some of the rules they question, you're like, yeah, that doesn't really make sense sometimes. You know what I mean? But then when you dig into it, it's okay, it does make sense. So here's a good example. I'm not going to say which position, but there was one time when I was walking through a factory floor, and I had a individual running a machine, watching a movie, right? And at the point, yeah, oh yeah, at
jeez.
this time, Tone, I was actually in a not CI. I was in a manager position, a director position. And I go to the kid and I'm like, hey man, you think you should be watching a movie right now? And he goes, well, if something happened with the equipment, it would just stop. Not like my generation would never say that. My generation would hide it, be like, oh my God, I don't want to get fired. So we had this conversation, and at the end of the conversation, I had to basically just tell him, just shut the movie off. That's one of the biggest differences I've seen. It's not that they don't I don't wanna say they don't care. They don't see the issues that we see.
Mm.
The younger generation, they just don't see it the way we see it because we were raised in different generations. Like I'm 47, you know what I mean? So I've lived before HR and before safety and before equality. So I've seen the Wild West. But I never underappreciated that the aspects of the safety and quality and things like that. This generation they're numb to it, if that makes sense.
That's crazy. So how about the older generation? So older, so I'm 38. So let's go
Yep.
above you
Yep.
and me.
Yes. So the older the legacy employees, as you would say, um, it's sort of like they're I don't want to they're you gotta convince them in different ways. Like you gotta respect the fact that they've seen a lot more than you've seen. You know what I mean? And that's a lot of times that's all that legacy generation wants. They want you to know that you're heard. And it's funny because I didn't realize that till I had my 25-year-old son. As he got into an adult, when I'm talking to him, there's times where it's like, oh, Brogan, I just want you to hear what I'm saying, and then you translate that to the generation now. That if you could connect with that, um, they'll move mountains for you too. It's funny because it goes back to our original point of the synergy of the plant. Once you connect to each one, and you can't connect them the
Mm.
same way, they don't react the same way, but it just moves mountains. It's a whole new world.
Ryan, it's been a pleasure catching up and talking work with you. If people want to reach out, just to touch base or hear more about what you do, what's a good place for them to land?
LinkedIn's that's probably the only place I'm on. I'm not on any social media anymore. That's junk food for the brain. Other
I
than
do,
that,
man.
yeah, you gotta tune out. You gotta focus on the important things, not with Kim Kardashian's doing. But yeah, like LinkedIn's the best spot. I'm always on there. I do a lot of stuff with ChatGPT off LinkedIn. Like a lot of times I'll see something and I go on Chat. I call him Charles, by the way. I like to be personal. I'm like, Charles, make this a training document for me and puts it right out. So I'm
I
always on
love
it.
it. Well, Ryan, thanks for being on the show. Really appreciate it, man.
Of course, Tone, anytime. You know me. This was my first podcast and I actually enjoyed it. So thank you very much. Appreciate you, brother.
One thing I respect about Ryan is that he understands motivation isn't simple. It's not just extrinsic. You can't toss someone a dollar and expect transformation. And it's not just intrinsic. People still need clarity, structure, and a scoreboard. No one is going to wake up every day and say, I love work more than anything, but you don't have to hate it either. Work is often the first path to what you ultimately want to do, as Ryan puts it. It's the vehicle. It clears the way, especially for the people on the floor who are doing the real work. The problem? Managers are often disconnected from those people. The skill is listening, actually listening, sincerely caring about what someone is saying instead of just waiting to respond. Employees aren't depreciating assets, they get better and better. Everything else you buy loses value over time. People don't. People don't want to feel stupid. They want to feel important. They want to be part of the solution. Ryan provides some of the solutions corporate America desperately needs right now, and that's why I really enjoyed this conversation with him. I think it's also due to the fact that we have a lot of similarities in how we see the world. We both study great thinkers like Dale Carnegie, self help legends, not just to improve ourselves, but to be in a position to help others when the moment calls for it. Pride, as he puts it, is the enemy in corporate today, and I couldn't agree more. And if you're in leadership, maybe the question is simple. Are you creating a scoreboard? Or just throwing the ball around and yelling at the people when they don't catch it? Thanks for listening to the Work Sucks, but I Like It podcast. We'll see you next time.